you start by telling us a little bit about Alec?
So currently he's 20 years old, and he's a big kid. He's
Yeah.
um, he has autism. He seems like that a sense of humor there,
Hmm.
and intelligence that comes out, but of course, it's kind of clouded under this whole shadow of autism.
Mm.
So um, there's a while in a way he seems, you know, quiet, and you expect like an antisocial aspect, but there's a social part of
Yep.
him. He enjoys being, um, you know, involved some way with the group. Really into computers and technology, that sort of thing. Want there, if that's
Yeah,
right.
well, and like you said, he is very social, and anytime a new person comes in the classroom, he walks right up to them and says, "Hi, what's your name?" And he's very interactive with new people. So, um, what are Alec's areas of strength? You spoke about computers.
Yeah.
Very good with computers.
So that's always been something that has interested him from a young age, and is more interested in um, the things that he can do with the computers and on the computer, as opposed to, say, a game on the
Mm-hmm.
computer. When we say he's interested in computers, people talk about what game he might like, and from an early age, there were some games that might have interested him, but he quickly became more interested in, gee, can I change the font size? Can I make it bigger, smaller? Um, so I guess, okay, we're talking about strengths, so maybe somewhat related to that is he's got that sort of technical ability. He was good at puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
He's, good at figuring things out. If you lock something up, it was like, if you can open it, chances are he can.
Mm.
So I think it's sort of that's related to that.
At what age did you notice atypical development or behaviors?
Okay. Um, I'd say when he was less than two, um, certainly, my wife did, moms tend to be more
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
observant of these things. Um, and so less than two, and certainly there were questions. Um, and he was officially diagnosed when he was maybe 2.5, a little under 2.5, 2 years, 3 months. But by then he had what we found out later were really the classic symptoms. It
Mm-hmm.
was he had a significant language delay, that lack of social contact, eye contact, and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing, and the perseverative behavior.
Okay. That kind of feeds into my next question. So, what was your knowledge of autism at the time?
A little, really.
Yeah.
Heard of it,
Yeah.
knew a little. He had, and maybe this is like more involved than you're looking for,
Oh no, anything's fine.
but he had, at that age, he had this chronic ear infections, and so we were frequently at the doctor because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it became just a great source of frustration to us, that just the whole overall thing, that we were frequently at the doctor at this
Yeah.
particular medical practice. 6 doctors all saw him, and um, none of them mentioned autism. None of them brought it up. When we would ask, but what about the language delay? What about that? And there was always, pediatricians were certainly at the time anyway, were very good at, you worry too much, don't judge your kids by
Mm-hmm.
other by these yardsticks that other
Yeah.
people give you, and until we deal with the ear infections, then we really can't talk about the language, and that's the cause of it.
Wow. So they
Yeah.
thought the ear infections were causing the language delays, and
At least that's what they were saying.
wow.
Yeah. The
Huh.
first person who I think mentioned autism to us was when it was related to the whole ear infection thing. Um, we were eventually sent to an ENT, and got the tubes
Yep.
put in, which really helped a lot. But on the path to doing that, one of they wanted to test his hearing, excuse me. And so we first were sent to Columbia Presbyterian. We lived in New York at the time, and the audiologist there was this woman who very bluntly said, "Is he autistic? He seems autistic." And
Wow.
I'm like, he's autistic.
Yeah.
I've never said that before, And so we eventually went to a different audiologist, and just because other things didn't work out. But it wasn't until a couple of months later that, and again, maybe I'm giving you more history.
Oh no,
than
this is
beforehand.
all part of it. So this is
Okay.
great. Yeah.
It- So that, that was starting to float around. Doctors were not saying it. We were hearing this term. People maybe were starting to hint about it. So around the time maybe when he was 2, we said, okay, to the doctors, we said, you need to give us refer us to we need to find this out about autism. We need to have him diagnosed. So they said, okay, to diagnose autism, you have to go to a developmental pediatrician. And we were living in again in New York at the time, and they said, here's one in Westchester. Call for an appointment, 4-month wait.
Wow.
In the meantime, we contacted someone. I'm not quite sure how we got this, but it was through the state. The state in New York, they have good early intervention. So we somehow got hooked up with a social worker and a teacher from the school district who came in to the home and we tested Alec for maybe an hour or so. But I'm sure within 5 minutes they knew, that he was autistic. But they can't diagnose, they can't
Right.
say he's autistic. They
Right.
could just say, okay, he belongs in an early intervention program for people, for kids with
Yeah.
developmental delays. And, within 2 weeks, he was in a program.
Well, that's great because I feel like 4 months is a long time where he could be getting the early intervention
Right.
services. So that's great that you had that.
So by the time he went to the doctor and got the diagnosis, and the doctor said, okay, he's autistic. Good luck, bye.
Really?
That was basically
Wow.
it. It was just it was a little bit more than that, but it was like, and so we're like, well, what do we do? Well, there's no medical treatment. Yeah, maybe we have some papers that we could like photocopy or something to send with you or something.
Wow.
But it was like, follow-up medical tests, but like no follow-up treatment. So there was, it was all, the doctors have to diagnose it, but
But they're not going to do anything.
yeah, the school district was all, that was like, it's behavioral, that's how you deal with it,
Wow. Is there any advice you would give to parents that might suspect their child could possibly have autism spectrum disorder?
Okay, discuss it with your pediatrician. And I guess the advice there would be, if you suspect something and you discuss it with your pediatrician, then you have to be the judge of, if they're just putting you off,
Yeah.
then you need to push.
Get
You need to,
or get a second opinion.
yeah, go elsewhere, something like, because we would be hearing stories of kids who weren't diagnosed until 5, 6,
Yeah.
7,
Right. And his reading skills are great. He can communicate verbally. Think about if he didn't get those early intervention skills, how different he could be today. What I
Right.
mean?
There's a certain amount that he was able to pick up. It's more than you expect that he was able to just pick up from the environment.
Yeah.
But things like the verbal skills,
Mhm.
there's clear that there was people who worked with him.
Yeah. What sort of challenges did Alec face at home growing up? So after the diagnosis and his childhood.
He had the perseverant activities. So he would find things that he wanted to do. His play was unusual, right? You'd buy toys, typical toys, and they often wouldn't interest him. But he might end up sitting in front of a computer and pressing the button for the CD tray, and closing it again and pressing the button, and do that
Yeah.
for half an hour, you know, open and close cabinet drawers, things like that. So, um, so there's, you know, the persevered play, um, which I know doesn't sound like a big thing in a way, but when that becomes like so much
Oh,
of
yeah.
the day that this hour is doing the same thing. The inability to interact with other kids, the seeming lack of interest in that. Eating was an issue. We went from being extremely picky and particular about what he ate, and then finding things that he liked and totally perseverating on them and needing to have those, like chicken nuggets and French fries would be like the only thing he would eat. He wanted to eat, and you know, so you'd work on things and attempt to broaden his, you know, horizons, but then you know, something that crops up even to this day. I mean, we're trying to think how to put it, but I guess it's just you would get this sense of frustration from him, and you could, I think, you can really relate to that. It's like there's things going on that he doesn't get, that he can't relate to you, that he can't communicate to you. So we often felt that if he could communicate better, it would relieve some of that frustration. And I think, you know, maybe the interventions did help with that when he was able to say, you know, more of what he wanted, what he didn't want. I think that's became helpful.
How was the original transition to Ben Haven?
The way we positioned it to him was that he was graduating, he was going to a new school. At the time, his brother, who was just a little over a year older, was graduating from high school and going to college. So we told Alec that, you know, how David went off to the University of Connecticut, and he was, you know, going up to the dorm. So we positioned this as Alec going to a new school as well, and that was useful because it made it seem like, okay, this is not, and more than seem like, but we were able to like make it clear to him, like, this is not punishment. This is part of, this is growth. This is normal. This is what happens. People go to, you know, they move on. They go to a different place. And we positioned the residence as the dorm for the school. So that was kind of fun.
And it seems like he really wants to be like his brother too, right? He looks up to him, and
yeah.
so that was probably helpful too, to have his brother going to college. And but I really want you to tell the Ben Haven University part of the story because I love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Alec, you know, we said he spends a lot of time on the computer. He does things that really surprise you on the computer. He will, well, anyway, what he did, he brought up a website. He Googled for it, he searched for Ben Haven University. When he didn't find it, he brought up a website and he put the browser into edit mode. So he was actually editing the HTML for this site, and he changed the title on the page to Ben Haven University. So he made like a page that said Ben Haven University.
I love that. Does it still exist, you know, that website?
No, because it was just like, it was only on his computer at the time. And I never did it, but I kind of thought about like just making that site.
Right.
With it, you know.
So I just kind of want to get, you know, into kind of the more fun. I've been kind of prying at you a little bit, but appreciate it. How long have you and Alec been participating in Special Olympics?
Probably about 5 or 6 years ago. We were looking for activities, and Alec was, you know, always very active. From a young age, he would bolt from us, and I used to run, and I took, you know, I kind of stopped, and then I realized that, well, I need to be able to catch Alex,
Yeah.
so I started running again. And then, well, it might seem a little illogical, but I thought, okay, if he's going to bolt from us, maybe I should just run with him.
Right.
That's an activity. So we started running together, and I, it was building up his endurance, and we did a couple of 5Ks together. So, and that was around the time then when we started trying Special Olympics track, and that worked out really well, especially with the track. He does these unified events, so he's teamed with a partner, and for the last few years, he's partnered with this young man who's just maybe about 2 years older than Alec, but he's really good, and
Yeah.
really good with him.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Like when you kind of flip it on Alec and say, you know what, you can do this, but we're gonna do it this way. That really works for him, and he gives you that look like, you figured me out. You know, for example, the
Yeah,
water
yeah.
play when he would run to the bathroom, and turn on all the water, and think that he's getting away with something. So if I just said, listen, do these couple things, and you can have 5 minutes of water play. That's fine. Like making him earn it, but giving him that, enabling him to kind of get that out. So I think that was a great idea. If he's gonna
Right.
run anyway, let's just make it a positive thing. And you can run, but we're gonna run safely. We're gonna run together. So
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah, and that's great that you found that as well. Because I had found similar things that, like, he would do things like, at home in the kitchen. When you have young kids, you baby proof.
Yeah.
But when they get older, you expect them to stop doing things. But Alec will always find new things. Like he started take a
Sorry.
take a kitchen knife, and he'd want to cut things.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, at some point I said, okay, if you want to cut, let's just learn how to cut something safely and do it together.
Mm.
So, not that we would do a lot of that, but just,
Yeah, yeah.
a little bit.
Right.
He was interested in everything like mechanical in the house. So he'd like go down into the basement and start messing with, the things like the water heater and the oil burner and stuff like that. So I thought, okay, I'll explain what everything is. So
Right.
at least he knows, and at least I can say, okay, this gets really hot, don't touch that, and
Mm.
So, and then there was a period there where, he doesn't do this as much, but we had to watch because he would always try to do things like, turn on the air conditioning in the winter and the heat in the summer, and maybe try to get them both on at the same time.
Mm.
Or we'd go to someone's house and he'd slip down to the basement and turn off the water heater or something.
Wow.
So,
That's great. And then I guess finally I would just say, how would you define autism in your own words?
oh, okay, that's interesting. Really early on, when there was this director, I think maybe it was the first early intervention program that we took out to, and parents. She's used to dealing with this. Parents are often a mess because this is the first place they're bringing the kids,
Yeah.
realizing that. But anyway, I remember her describing it as she said static in the lines, which being
Hmm.
an electrical engineer, that kind of
Yeah.
language I understood. But I could see that now.
Yeah.
It was like, you have a brain that is seemingly fully functional in a lot of ways, and the body that's seemingly fully functional, but it's like the interpretation of the signals is somehow not, working right. It's like you're in a spacesuit and, not everything is working out
Yeah.
like it's supposed to.
I like that.
So I don't know. That's just, I guess, one aspect
I like that.
of
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for coming in today. Appreciate
Sure.
it.
Thank you guys for doing what you do.